The Pod News Weekly Review uses chapters, which is nice.
The last word in podcasting news. This is the Pod News Weekly Review with James Cridlin and Sam Sethi.
I'm James Cridlin, the editor of Pod News.
And I'm Sam Sethi, the CEO of True Fans.
In the chapters today, iHeartRadio, Netflix and Spotify, and plenty more. This podcast is sponsored by Buzzsprout with the tools, support and community to ensure you keep podcasting. Start podcasting, keep podcasting with Buzzsprout.com.
From your daily newsletter, the Pod News Weekly Review.
James, let's kick off then. It's 2026. It feels like an exciting year for podcasting and an exciting story from iHeartRadio. What have they done?
Yes, very exciting story that we covered a week and a bit ago because, of course, we've been doing our special shows until now. I speak to you from a cold hotel room in Orlando, which was a phrase I never thought I'd be saying. But still, there we are. Yes, and this was a story that really came out of the blue after the announcement from iHeartRadio that they were going to be supporting video. Of course, the first question that I had was, how? How are you going to be supporting video? Is this just another portal that we'll need to upload video to, a bit like Spotify works and a bit like, obviously, YouTube works? And so asked the right questions, hopefully, and got some pretty good answers. So yes, iHeartRadio will be supporting OpenRSS. iHeartRadio will be perfectly happy with the video podcasts that are currently available through OpenRSS, which is more than 100,000 of them. But the most exciting thing is that iHeartRadio's app will also support the alternate enclosure feature. It's the biggest app to support that to date. It means that if you produce audio and video, they can be in the same RSS feed, which means much easier to find stuff, much easier to switch between video and audio. It's all good, I think, Sam.
It's amazing. No, I mean, it was a lovely start to 2026. Thank you for the late Christmas present, or I don't know what it would be, really. Yeah. I think what's nice is I think this is the dam finally is opening. We saw Apple, obviously, in 2025 start to support the OpenRSS meta tags, the features. This is great. On the back of that, Podhome, again, a nice, wonderful hosting company out of Holland with Barry, just came out and announced he's going to support the alternative enclosure as well. So it looks like it's all happening. Hello, Apple. Apple, come in, Apple.
Yes, the only thing I would say is porn. Hello, porn, and I think that may be one of the concerns here. But obviously, YouTube seems to have fixed that. So so we'll see what happens there. Yes, but very exciting. I think. I mean, the point of the alternate enclosure and OpenRSS being used is also the point that you can earn money properly through iHeartRadio's video integration. You can earn money properly. You can do dynamically inserted video ads, which Omni Studio have said that they're going to be doing. You can be doing, all of the stuff that you do with normal podcasting. iHeart isn't going to jump in and say, we'll have 30% of that money, thank you. None of that is going to happen. So I think this is all pretty good news. Good news for you, Sam. As the producer of this show, I have Conal Byrne signed up as a guest in a couple of weeks' time.
Nice.
So we will learn more about that in the next couple of weeks.
Well done, you. I think Audio Boom in the reporting last year, at the end of last year, said they are the world's biggest video producer. That was their statement.
Yes.
Not sure I agreed with it, but that's what they said. I'm hoping now that companies like that will also begin to support it. Acast being another one. Do you think, James, this is the final nail to open up the podcasting 2.0 support from all these companies who have not done anything in the last 3 years?
I mean, I would hope that companies realise, you know what, stick it in the alternate enclosure tag. It won't be massive yet, but you're producing the video anyway. So just get it in there. Why not? That seems to make quite a lot of sense. So you would hope that there are a lot of companies who end up doing that.
I look forward to our sponsors, Buzzsprout, doing it as well. Now, Moving on, a company that's not supporting the alternative enclosure, but that does do video, is Netflix. And they've done a deal with iHeartRadio. What have they done, James?
Yes, they've done deals with quite a lot of people, actually, but iHeartMedia is one of them, doing an exclusive video partnership for top iHeart podcasts. There's also Barstool Sports in there, I think. There are shows from Spotify, of course. It's already on Netflix here in the US. It's not on Netflix anywhere else. But some of the deals that they have done include On Purpose with Jay Shetty. They haven't done On Purpose with Jay Shetty. That's one of the interesting things. They've done some big shows, but they haven't done some of the other big shows that iHeart actually own. So On Purpose with Jay Shetty isn't going to go onto Netflix, nor is Club Shay Shay, nor is Drink Champs, all of those things. So that's quite interesting, and probably the reason for that is if you sign with Netflix, then you have to basically turn around and say your stuff needs to come off YouTube, because Netflix and YouTube are in competition, and Netflix isn't going to give you money if it doesn't get anything from it. And so I think it's interesting that actually you've got some big shows on iHeart that are heading over to Netflix only, and then you've got some big shows that are definitely not.
I guess they're all weighing up. Does 20 million in my bank account outweigh the loss of hundreds of thousands of users?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. That's the thing.
Warner Brothers is one of the things that's being thrown around. It's interesting that it's, again, a media company. Netflix has tried to buy it. It looks like some of the investment houses certainly are now downgrading Netflix. They don't think this short form strategy is the way forward. That's quite interesting when you start to see whether people who look at the numbers think this is going to be good. Again, one of the things we both predicted in our show last week was that we think this is all a waste of time, in that 12 months from now, Netflix will just abandon this strategy.
Yeah, it's interesting. The conversations that I've already had here at Podfest about Netflix, pretty well everybody is saying it's not going to work, though, is it? which I think is an interesting thing.
Well, we've seen it with Spotify. I mean, it's rinse and repeat, isn't it? Really, it's spend a lot of money, get exclusives, hope that you're going to drive traffic, and guess what? It doesn't work, and then you go, oh, okay. So I think, I don't know what Netflix is doing, whoever runs this strategy, but maybe they should have talked to Spotify first and found out why it didn't work there before they started down this road. Yes,
and of course, Netflix aren't the only one. So yesterday, Pod News covered CNN. Yes, CNN, who have purchased some shows from Lemonada Media, which will be available on CNN All Access, which is their streaming service here. So you can watch Lemonada shows for some reason, but those shows aren't going to be taken off YouTube because CNN All Access. So therefore, well, what's the deal there then? That seems a very strange thing to end up doing. It's just clearly an executive has gone, well, if Netflix are getting podcasts, maybe we should. That appears to be what's going on there. The other thing that was also announced this week was Netflix announcing a new video podcast of its own called The Pete Davidson Show. And the Pete Davidson Show, I mean, he's a Saturday Night Live comedian. He'll be doing apparently a daily, I think it might be weekly, a weekly podcast, according to Netflix. But the video podcast won't be available on podcast platforms.
So it's not a podcast then?
So it's not a podcast. What are you talking about? A weekly show on Netflix. That's what you're talking about. Is it a podcast? No, it's not a podcast. So yes, very, very, very strange. But I'm sure that Netflix know what they're doing, Sam.
I'm going to go and hunt down who the person is in Netflix who's running this strategy, and then look at their LinkedIn profile. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I wonder what job they'll have next. Right. Global ad revenue. Now, this is the number that we always look out for. I don't know if it's from Deloitte that we always look out for it. But Deloitte is suggesting that the global ad revenue for podcasts and vodcasts, do we have to add that word into it now, will reach 5 billion in 2026, which they say is up 20% year on year. Is this a number that we should be now touting?
It's an interesting number because it's a global number. Now, Deloitte does bring these numbers out every single year, and they have done for the last few years. But to see that ad revenue, global ad revenue for podcasts in all of their forms is still going up is obviously a good thing to take a look at. What we normally take a look at in terms of the industry is the slightly more focused 2.4 billion number, which comes from the IAB. Now, that is a US-only number. But it is a number which has been very carefully, very carefully assembled by the IAB. They do that with a couple of other places as well, so you do get a bit more of a accurate number. But even so, Deloitte showing that the global ad revenue will reach $5 billion, which is up 20% year on year, so they say, is very exciting. Now, there is some data in that report that I find a little bit more interesting. One of the bits of data says that users who watch vodcasts consume 1.5 times more content than those who just listen to podcasts, which is so totally against all of the data that I have. It's strange. That is definitely not the case. What the case is that actually audio podcast is still number one in terms of content consumption. So I've got no idea where this data has come from. But I thought that was interesting. And then there was also a thing around multitasking. And if you're watching video, then surprise, surprise, you don't multitask as much as you do if you're consuming audio, because audio is something for your ears when your eyes are busy. So there's some data here. 29% of podcast listeners don't multitask when they're listening to a podcast, but 44% of vodcast watchers say that they aren't multitasking. I thought that was important for advertisers because actually, if you are multitasking, if you're doing other things, then the advertising might be a bit less effective. I've been told off by some people who responded to that in the Podcast Business Journal last week. So perhaps that's not the case. But I thought that those multitasking figures were interesting as well, particularly when you have a look at it in terms of ad spend.
It's one of those where I'm not sure I know that they know that's true or not. I think these are subjective opinions. I don't think they're observable fact, because it'll be a sample, right? And under the sample, it'll be the same as Schrodinger's cat. By observing it, I think you affect the result. I mean, I think samples are useful, and I think samples give us useful data. But I'm not entirely, it's just fascinating to see how that video versus audio consumption data is totally the wrong way around from the other data that I have seen in this space. But it may be that I'm not reading it properly. That's one of the bugbears that I have whenever I'm listening to research being talked about on a podcast, and you go, no, it doesn't say that. And perhaps consume content is the phrase rather than consume podcasts. Perhaps consume content is saying that if you watch a video podcast, then you're much more likely to watch lots of other stuff on a streaming platform, and in which case I would probably agree with that. So, more research needed. Yes.
I think the phrase.
But I think the overall thing is that, the numbers are going up. I think, again, my overall take on 2026 is I think it's going to be a great year for podcasting. So, yeah.
Indeed.
Now, Spotify, let's see what they're up to. I mean, they made some big announcements a couple of weeks ago about their distribution API videos. So companies like Acast, Libsyn, Audio Boom, Omni Studio, etc. are going to get access to it. I'm pleased to announce we're getting access to it as well. True fans, that is. Hooray.
Very good.
So I just have to throw that in there. But also, they announced something called dynamically inserted video sponsorships, which are due to launch in April. Now, I don't really follow this area of advertising much, so tell me more, James.
Well, so they're being very careful here because what they don't want is for that dynamic ad insertion, which is what it is, to be used for ads. Hence why they're calling it dynamic video sponsorship. But what we could do on this show, which we don't, but what we could do on this show is we could have put all of the mentions of Buzzsprout, our sponsor, into dynamic ad insertion, and then put those in terms of a dynamic insertion so that when Buzzsprout inevitably cancel after you say rude things about them, Sam, then we can
that
automatically...
was a feature request.
Then we can automatically rip all of the Buzzsprout mentions out. And that's what a lot of people do. And so being able to do that dynamically in your video is an important thing. So that's what they seem to be offering. Now, what I would say is normally when you are doing dynamic ad insertion, someone needs to get paid somewhere. And so, companies who do dynamic audio insertion, DAI, will normally take, a couple of % of the ad revenue off, so that they can afford to end up doing this, or they'll charge you a per 1,000 figure. Is Spotify going to offer this for free? That's a question. We don't really know the answer to that, but that's certainly something which I was sort of thinking about when I ended up reading this. But very exciting. It's something, of course, as we know, that YouTube has announced. But YouTube announced it in September. Everybody got thrillingly excited by it. YouTube still haven't launched it. And all that we know is that it's going to be launched for a small group of creators at some point this year. And we still don't know quite when that's going to happen. It looks a little bit more likely that Spotify will be able to launch that a little bit earlier. So good news, I think, for creators. But I think the proof is in the pudding. The proof is in the doing. The do is in the doing. It's very early.
Yes.
And it'll be interesting to see exactly what the implementation is and how it's costed, if it is costed.
Now, one of the things that Spotify did tell you, James, was that the platform itself has contributed more than $10 billion to the podcast industry over the past 5 years. Is that a good number? Is that a sound number?
I mean, it's a lovely number, isn't it?
It's a lovely number. Is it true?
I mean, I asked them how they calculated that number, and they basically didn't tell me. They said it's a mix of our contributions in technology, distribution, and direct creator payments, i.e., it isn't how much money that the company has spent. It is how much money that they think that they are worth. Well, darling, I think I'm worth $2 billion.
Priceless.
Yes, exactly. So, so I don't know about that, but it's a nice number. And I tried to work it out for Apple Podcasts, just on a very rough basis. I reckon that if Spotify is worth 10 billion, I reckon that Apple Podcasts is probably worth at least 25 billion, if not more, over the last 5 years, just because of what Apple donates to the industry. Essentially, it donates leadership, it donates specifications, it donates sort of an adult view on these things, but also, of course, you've got the Apple directory, the Apple Podcasts directory, which so many people use, and that is not a free thing either. So so I think if Spotify is worth 10 billion, I think Apple is worth 25 billion, maybe, but I think my figure is just as reliable as the Spotify number, to be honest.
Are they trying to add this number to their accounts? I mean, there is a thing called the intangible asset. Often your brand value is an intangible asset that is added to your accounts. And so they're often a subjective number. So Nike will say that this swoosh tick is worth 100 million or 100 billion. Well, pick a number, right? And they add that to their accounts, and their accounts are therefore adjusted based on the intangible asset. I hope Spotify aren't trying to add 10 billion to their accounts as an intangible asset.
I'm not sure that Spotify needs to do that, to be honest. Okay. But yeah, but it is, I guess, an intangible asset. You could argue, look, we have helped so many more people get access to podcasting. They weren't using Apple Podcasts, and particularly weren't using Apple Podcasts on Android. So therefore, we have added an awful lot of value to the industry. And I don't think you can argue with that. I think where you start arguing is actually what that value is. And that 10 billion number just seems a bit sort of calculated out of the air. So, but, I mean, the point that they make is a sensible point, which is that, that they have contributed to the industry. And I don't think that anybody can really argue against that. Although I'm sure that some people would, particularly here at Podfest, I tell you.
Now let's move on to one of the other companies, and that's making a wave in podcasting, YouTube. Why would anyone knowingly buy ads on a platform that works up to 25% worse? What? According to Oxford Research, the platform is there is too much hype around YouTube ads. What are they talking about, James?
Yeah, so this is Oxford Road, who have done a lot of data in terms of this, but apparently ads on YouTube shows are less effective than ads on audio-only podcasts.
Didn't we just say if you watch the video, it's more effective?
I know, exactly. But there again, this is data that's based on more than 1,000 campaigns, data that shows that video comes as a heavy cost to advertisers who might be better buying audio instead. I think with all of these things, you do also need to just have a look at whose numbers they are. They're numbers from Oxford Road. Oxford Road is a podcast ad sales company. Just worthwhile bearing that in mind. But I think in terms of, in terms of these numbers, we don't really have very much ad effectiveness data in the industry. And seeing these numbers, again, if truly video works 25% worse, then that's something just to bear in mind in terms of the costing of these things and everything else.
Now, one of the other things that came out was a report from Podtrac, which I thought was a little bit worrying. They said that the year-on-year comparisons of publisher shows using RSS consumption was down by 2.3%. YouTube consumption, on the other hand, was up by 82%. What's Podtrac telling us?
I think Podtrac is telling us here, and to be fair, this is me having a look at their rankings for December this year, or rather December in 2025, and December the previous year. So it's me doing the comparisons rather than Podtrac. But I think what we're seeing here is two things. There is clearly a slowing of RSS-delivered podcasts just because you can also get podcasts in other ways. So you can get podcasts on YouTube, and so therefore there will be some people, albeit not a lot, but there will be some people who have changed their podcast consumption away from OpenRSS and moved it onto YouTube. So I think that's partially it. But also, if you put your Spotify show onto video, then all of a sudden, as far as I can work out, you'll never appear in these Podtrac rankers anymore, because that Spotify show is now being served by Spotify. It's not going anywhere near the Podtrac redirect, so Podtrac don't know how many times that show is played, even if it's audio only. Because when you upload a video show to Spotify, they mistakenly, in my view, replace the audio version with the video version, and that means that Podtrac don't see any of that traffic. So I think the fact that consumption through OpenRSS is down by just 2.3% is probably good when you bear in mind how many people have taken the Spotify pill and uploaded their show in video to Spotify, and therefore all of those numbers have been lost. So I think probably RSS is flat, if not slightly up. But obviously the big story is YouTube up by 82% in consumption for, in inverted commas, podcasts for the last year. And that's clearly a trend that we will continue to see. But it does show, I think, that it's additive rather than a replacement really for most people.
I think we've said the big battle, and certainly in my head for 2026, is RSS. I think, getting RSS into the psyche of the the mainstream user. What is it? Why do you need it?
Yeah.
And secondly, all the work on Podcasting 2.0 is about improving the RSS namespace with these tags and features, which are being supported by things like Apple. And as we mentioned, iHeartRadio with the alternative enclosure. It's YouTube, Netflix and Spotify, the closed market players that are subjugating RSS away from people and going for direct upload. I think that's the battle. That's the thing we have to get to.
Yeah. I think that there is definitely a story to be told by someone about the benefits of OpenRSS, and that's a story that needs to be told often. It's one of the things that I'll be doing at Podfest here later tomorrow, because I think that it's a fundamental part of where we are as an industry. It's a fundamental part of what Adam and Dave did when they invented podcasting, was to keep it open. And I think that that's the exciting thing about podcasting, is that firstly it's open, secondly I can be on the same platforms as Amy Poehler, I can be on the same platforms as Joe Rogan. I'm just a click away from them. That's the exciting thing of what RSS gives you that no one else has, and that actually you give up when you start talking about podcasts being available on Netflix. So I think it's a massively important thing. We should be talking about it more.
One company I've asked to be the champion of that is Apple, and Apple have said they had the best year they have ever had in 2025. What have they been talking about?
Yeah, this is Apple Podcasts specifically. They say that they have achieved record listeners, plays and subscribers. No numbers were given. But of course, if you take a look back at what Apple achieved last year, automated chapters, timed links, dialogue enhancement tools using AI in the app as well. It was also, let's not forget, the year that Apple Podcasts made its submissions process easier. I think after they saw the slating that they were getting in the Pod News report card, they've made that an awful lot easier to get new shows into the Apple Podcasts directory. And of course, last year they also spoke at a podcast event for, as I said in Pod News, for what the company said was the first time ever, because we've all been at podcast conferences where someone from Apple has stood up and said, I'm not supposed to be speaking here. Please don't say that I'm speaking here. So I think Apple is... Apple Podcasts is still having a very good time of it. I don't think that they are very good at shouting about that, though. This was a throwaway remark that was part of Eddie Q's announcement that they're going to be allowing you to use their creator software on a monthly basis. And wasn't something that the Apple Podcasts team thought, oh, this is good news, we should probably tell some of the podcast trade. So I don't think necessarily that Apple are as brilliant as they could be in terms of shouting from the rooftops how good Apple Podcasts is. And I don't know if you saw Ashley Carman the other week in Bloomberg basically saying, Apple Podcasts has lost its way in terms of the narrative around podcasting. I don't know whether that's entirely true, but there's certainly a grain of truth there. So but as I say, great news, record listeners, record plays, record subscribers for Apple Podcasts, and they still remain, let's not forget, the number one podcast app for consumption here in the US. So I think that that's an important thing to remember as well.
So James, one of my wishes for 2026. Oh yes, anti-competitive nature of Apple. Would it be nice that the default podcast app is no longer the Apple Podcast app? Like the browser, maybe? That would be good. Maybe the EU could put a bit of pressure there, because actually I think a lot of Apple's growth is because they are the default podcast app, which, given that they own the platform, the operating system and the App Store, I think is a little anti-competitive.
I don't have a dog in this race.
I do.
I hear exactly. You most certainly do. I would. I would agree that perhaps that might be a thing that might be nice. You can change the browser on your Apple phone. You can change the Mail app on your Apple phone. I've discovered as well, and there are a few other things as well. but yeah, I'm there thinking, it'd be great if Apple Podcasts was a bit more open and and was available on Android properly. But I can also see the other side of that coin as well.
Yeah, I mean, leverage your platform while you can. Anyway, moving on. The complaint has gone in already. Don't worry. Right, moving on. This was a story from the end of last year, but I think it's worth covering it. I mean, obviously, we haven't been on the air doing this news element. Yeah. AudioUK has finally got a seat on the Creative Industries Council. What is the Creative Industries Council, James?
Yes, so this is part of the UK government. What this essentially means is that people who make podcasts may have access in the future to tax-efficient ways of funding those shows. It means that we have the ear of government, so we can actually make sure that things, maybe there might be a law against AI or something, and we have the ear of government in terms of that, because the podcast industry and the audio industry is now part of the creative industries, meeting up with government every month or every couple of months. So I think this is brilliant news. It's something that AudioUK has been battling for quite some time. The outgoing CEO, Chloe Straw, who has been really pushing for this. So I think that's great news. Now it said in the announcement that Chloe Straw, is joining the Creative Industries Council. I'm not sure that that's the case anymore, because she has accepted a job, a big job at Goalhanger.
She has.
Which is great news for her. I don't know what that means for the seat in the Creative Industries Council, to be honest. But there again, AudioUK it's a trade association where quite a lot of the people who work for AudioUK also have proper jobs that they earn money from. So perhaps Chloe will continue to end up doing that, and I hope that she does. You point out that Alison Lomax, the managing director of YouTube in the UK, is also on that council as well, which is interesting to see. But yeah, I think this is great news. I know that Canadian podcasters are trying to do the same sort of thing, and any proper recognition for our industry alongside radio, alongside TV, alongside other parts of the media industry is a really good thing.
Well, I think with the likes of Netflix and others taking on podcasting, inverted commas, then I think, TV and others need to sit up and listen as well. So yeah, it'll be useful.
Yeah, I think so.
Now, related to that, in the UK, audience research company Radar released their autumn 2025 figures. Now, I know that's 2025, but, again, let's look at some positive numbers. What was in there, James?
So the total number of podcast listeners in the UK, according to Radar worked this out in a different way than Edison Research do, but they say that the total number of podcast listeners has remained steady, 24% of the adult population per week. We normally see monthly figures. This is a weekly figure. We can also then work out 127 million hours listening to podcasts each week in the UK. If you would like to compare that to the US, that number in the US is 773 million. So nice big numbers there. And those are the numbers, by the way, that are going to go up. The total consumption of podcasts, not necessarily the total reach, how many people are using them, but the total time spent with that. I think that we can work out, therefore, that people in the UK listen to podcasts more than they do in the US. 9 hours of podcasts every week, according to Radar. So that's nice to end up seeing. And the other interesting figure here is that 88% of people claim to listen to all or mostly all of each episode that they listen to, if you see what I mean. So if they are automatically downloading shows, then they are listening to most of them, is what this research ends up showing. There's always been a bit of a concern that the amount of downloads that you see isn't necessarily the amount of plays. Well, here what we're seeing is that 20% of downloads are never listened to, but we can see some pretty high numbers there. That's nice to see, exclusivity, but obviously what would be better, and frankly, data that Apple already has, is how many downloads there are on their system. They've got that data. And also how many plays there are on their system. Apple have got that data too. We would love to see that. And of course, Apple have never talked about specific numbers. I totally understand why. So this is the best peek that we have into that.
One of the things that I've been doing, as you know, is trying to get streaming data based on the way that TrueFans is going to be putting out. And I'm in conversation with Apple about this because we are seeing some really strange data. I'm going to share it with you, James, through an email. I'm sure you'll make better sense of it than I will in the future. But as a sort of entry point into the conversation, so we're seeing Apple's podcast in terms of number of hours listening to episodes through our streaming data is significant. We're looking at 30-40% of an episode time is being taken up by Apple. And when we spoke to Apple, it was all about, it's not nefarious. What we're doing is we are using it to get the chapters and we're using it to get the transcript. And we're like, okay, fine. But you are using people's data. But we then looked and we saw LinkedIn, Facebook, OpenAI, Claude. I mean, the number of bots is absolutely frightening. Now, they're streaming the data through TrueFans, but on other hosted platforms, they're downloading it. They download the whole thing. And that, to me, and why I want to raise it now, is skewing the download numbers further. I think we need to look at this. I think bots are now really increasing the number of downloads that users or podcasters are getting. And other hosting companies are not flagging this. I don't know why, but is it because we like the big number from downloads and therefore don't rock the boat? But I think a lot of downloads are nothing to do with actual people listening. And therefore your point, James, is we should be looking at play numbers. And again, Apple has the data.
Yeah, I think so. I would put a little bit of caution around that. Apple, of course, has bots that download shows because they need to produce transcripts and the automated chapters and all of that stuff. I find it interesting that the bits of your data that I've seen so far, I find it interesting how many times Apple is automatically downloading a show.
6 or 7 times.
But that is, which I find fascinating because they really only need to download it once, but who knows quite what's going on there. But what I would also say is that Apple's bots that download this stuff do have a different user agent to Apple's apps.
They do.
So it is something that most companies, obviously will just write into the bots line. TrueFans is a little bit different because you're charging people for bandwidth rather than charging people for, just for having an account, and so therefore, of course, it matters. I would also just go a little bit further, and I would say, remember our friends at Inception Point AI. Mm-hmm. They have said that all they need is 20 downloads with dynamically inserted ads put inside them for that show or for that episode to make profit, because their costs are so low, because it's just AI producing something and then automatically sticking up there. I would be prepared to bet that all of the 20 initial downloads that any show gets is from bots. That would be what my bet is. And so therefore you could potentially argue that any show that you put out there is going to get somewhere in the region of 20, 25 downloads, all from bots. If that means that you are earning enough money from the dynamically inserted ads that no one will listen to, then that's a really strange thing. If you can bring your costs down that low. And I think that there's definitely a story there somewhere in terms of, actually, if you flood the directories enough with AI-generated slop, then you can earn money out of it. And the only people that lose out are the advertisers. Because it's essentially, I mean, one person in podcasting yesterday over dinner was basically saying this is essentially shoplifting. This is essentially going into going into an advertiser and grabbing money from them and not giving them anything back in return. So I find it fascinating. I think there's definitely a very interesting story here about how dynamically inserted ads work alongside bots and alongside those sorts of things. And I would love to dive a little bit more into that.
So here's a dilemma I'm facing. Because we, as you just said, offer variable pricing, we stream and you only pay for the data you stream. Should we block the bots? Should we give the choice to the user to block the bots? Because I've heard two arguments. One is, no, I don't want the bots using my data. Or the other side of the coin is, oh no, I want OpenAI to have access to my content so that if somebody asks a question, then maybe my podcast comes up as the answer.
Well, I mean, I've used TrueFounds. So the cheeky answer is you've never shied away from any user control, and so therefore I'm sure that you'll be adding another checkbox. That's the cheeky answer. The more sensible answer is I think that this is part of the cost of putting a podcast out there, putting a website out there, putting anything on the internet, is that actually the bots, and let's not forget, of course, Google is a bot. You essentially need Google to spider your website because otherwise you're virtually invisible. And so the friendly bots that end up making sure that you are catalogued correctly in directories in other places is really important. I have looked at blocking bots and things from the Pod News website, and I've decided that it's probably not a good idea because I do want OpenAI or other similar tools, as well as the Google bot, as well as many other things, to be able to go through my stuff and link to it. The question is, are they going to link to it, or are they going to just regurgitate my work without linking to it? And that's a separate question, I think.
I guess this is an ongoing story. We'll find out more. Now,
it is, isn't it?
Whizzing around the world, James, just at the end of last year, the US threatened economic penalties against the European Union, not for Greenland, but for Spotify, who, if the EU does not roll back regulations and lawsuits targeting US giants, right? So, okay, that was just one of the stories. But related to that was Spotify then updated for Spotify for Creators their new set of terms and conditions. One of the things that stood out from that was that it's fine now, if it's been cleared for use, for you to put music within podcasts. How's that possible?
If it's been cleared for use is the important phrase here. So these are the new terms and conditions from Spotify for Creators, which came out at the end of last year. What has always been the case in previous terms and conditions is it's basically said you're not allowed any music at all. No music at all. And there are plenty of stories. I see a news story every single week of somebody saying, we've got the rights to put our music, the music that we've bought, into this podcast, and Spotify still keep on sending our podcast host a takedown notice because it's got music in it. So the rule has always been, don't put music in your podcast if you want Spotify to list it. Now the terms and conditions have changed. Now the terms and conditions changing doesn't necessarily mean that the entire Spotify platform has changed, but what the terms and conditions now say is that basically, music is allowed as long as you have adequate evidence that it has been cleared for use. So at some point they're going to be relaxing the fact that that they've been automatically taking shows down. I'm not sure that's going to change an awful lot of people, but it's certainly just a little tweak in the terms and conditions that's just worthwhile knowing about.
Who's the onus on proving, though? I mean, is it on the Is Spotify saying, "Oh, we'll blinker our eyes to this unless somebody challenges it, and therefore you can"?
No, I think it's going to be the other way around. Because what Spotify don't want is they don't want people filling podcasts up with music that would otherwise be paid for by Spotify on their platform. So if I was going to put a Take That song or a Joni Mitchell song into a podcast, then Spotify, will get a little bit concerned because they have a separate agreement with those record companies, and they should be paying those record companies a certain amount of money, and blah blah blah. So I suspect that it will be, a bit, if I wanted to, I could get AC/DC's Back in Black, and I could get that as the intro to this show. It would cost us millions of dollars, but I could do it. The onus would still be on me, I think, to then go to Spotify and prove that I had the music clearances. And only after I had proved that I'd got the music clearances would Spotify then allow that. And I think that the change in the terms and conditions is Spotify can now allow that. Because previously there hasn't been that carve out. So if you've got a couple of million spare, just so that we can have some Australian music on our podcast, then we could end up doing that. But I think that's about as far as it goes.
Yeah, leave it with me. I'll talk to Kylie next week. Does this though? So somebody like a Joe Martin who has waived his copyright, so that we can use them within podcasts. So shows like Adam Curry was doing, but hasn't done for a while, Booster Grand Ball, which included music within it. And there was the Podcasting 2.0 podcast license, which really needs to be reviewed again and again. But that was saying, we would allow you to use our music. So you can't sell it, but you can replay it. Now, I never expect Spotify going to use that tag, but is that the sort of thing eventually we want to be aiming for, where the license in effect automates that rather than you having to prove it each time?
Yeah, I mean, maybe, but I think that this is a long way into the future. And what Spotify would prefer is if Joe Martin just uploaded his music onto Spotify, of course. So I think, the question here is really, a little change in the terms and conditions probably isn't a big change in terms of whether or not we can use music, but it just regularizes where we are with pretty well every other platform, which is if you do have the right. So the music that we have on this show has been custom composed for us by a company called TM Studios. They're based in Dallas. They've given us the rights, the global rights to use our music wherever we want to use our music, except on broadcast radio, where I don't believe I'm allowed to use it. So with that exception, I have rights for the Pod News music. So theoretically, at least, Spotify could have come running at me and saying, where are your rights for the music that you're using? Now, at least, this is now regularized with pretty well everybody else who allow music into a podcast if the proper clearances have been done. The difficulty is that I don't actually believe that you can clear a piece of music, a piece of commercial music like AC/DC. I don't believe that you can actually clear that globally on a podcast. I actually think that is still an impossibility. It's certainly an impossibility if you're going through the rights holders. I think it's interesting, but I'm not sure. I mean, I think that there are plenty of conversations around music in podcasts anyway, but I'm not sure necessarily that this is a big deal yet. But who knows what the future might bring.
Okay, now a story you just posted on Pod News Daily is about the Kelce brothers, their podcast New Heights. This I didn't quite get. They're designing a clubhouse, which is an online merchant store, to bring together video of the podcast with merchandise opportunities. Now, we heard this from YouTube saying that there will be an opportunity to put merch links within the podcast. Is this what they're doing?
Yeah, this is kind of what they're doing. They're doing it a little bit the other way around. So on YouTube, when you watch, MKBHD, for example, then underneath his video are direct links to buy an MKBHD T-shirt or a screwdriver or whatever other tat that he's selling, and so that's all fine. What Amazon are doing here in a trailblazing retail destination, and I think that they've used other entertaining words like innovative and everything else. It's basically a website, Sam. And it's a website that includes the video from their shows, but also includes links to tat that you can buy with the Kelce brothers on them. And so it's essentially the trailblazing retail destination here is essentially just that conversation around, can we get a website which also has some merch on it as well as the video from the show. I think that's about as far as it goes. It's not a particularly exciting thing, but gosh, whoever wrote that release was thought that this was the most exciting thing ever. Well, I have to say also, the website looks as if it's a website from 2011. It's not a 2026 website. It looks very, very old-fashioned. Yeah, really weird.
Well, look, the reason I was interested with it was three things, right? One was the timed links story we covered about Apple, right?
Ah, yes.
So transcript,
I see where you're going here.
Timed links, nice one. Apple sells more merch fundamentally within Apple sites. If this is Amazon, aka Wondery in this case, then Amazon's the world's largest online retail store. Couldn't Amazon start promoting this for all podcasters and say, hey, by the way, come and work with Amazon, put your podcast here and fulfill any retail merch links you want directly from the Amazon store?
I mean, I think that's a very interesting thing. And in fact, could Amazon take this further and propose a merch link inside RSS?
Exactly.
Yeah, so that you've got that. I mean, arguably, we've already got that in terms of the funding tag. And you could use the funding tag for a merch link and, and market merch. But yes, I mean, is there something there that Amazon could be doing? You would argue that, with Amazon Marketplace, with all of that stuff, Amazon is the perfect retail partner, apart from the obvious issues, for any podcaster that wants to sell merch. So I think you make a good point there. And wouldn't it be interesting if you were to link it through into the RSS the RSS feed? I do love their release, because their release is just so hyperbolic. So they talk about a trailblazing retail destination, and they talk about this is it demonstrates how Amazon works with creative entrepreneurs to build something groundbreaking. It's a website. But then they've got this thing, and I think we can all learn from this. They've got one line here, Sam, that says you can easily access each new podcast episode through, and get this, one-click links to Prime Video and YouTube. One-click links. Wow, there's a good idea. One-click links, because I don't know about you, but every link that I've seen so far on the internet, you have to click it 4 times. No, this is a one-click link. It's just brilliantly worded. It's just lovely. So bravo, whoever wrote that
ChatGPT, well done.
piece of PR. Yes, whoever wrote that piece of PR, give them a rise.
But you see, I mean, sorry to labour this. I've had an Amazon affiliate link since the beginning of time, and one of the things that would be lovely is for me to be able to collate a collection of products from Amazon into a personalized page that is my page that I could drive traffic to and use with my podcast. So I think there's stuff they could do. I just don't think they will. That's the problem.
And I mean, there's stuff that you could do right now to end up doing that with the Amazon affiliate link. The only problem with Amazon affiliate links is that they are separate for every single country.
Oh, right.
And so if you're a global podcast or a global website, then you can't actually have a button that just says buy this from Amazon and it automatically redirects to your local Amazon. You have to apply to every single Amazon affiliate program in every single country separately. and then have conversations around, okay, well, how do we then link to those? Which is one of the reasons why I don't bother, because I think I've got an Amazon affiliate link for the UK because of a website that I used to run 20 years ago. So that is still up and running and working. I had one for the US for about 3 months, and they said, well, you're not selling enough, we're going to close it down. And I don't have one for Canada, I don't have one for Australia, and so on and so forth. So it's another, bit of there's probably some legal reasons why they have to do that, but it's another thing where, it's just really difficult to do this on a global basis.
No, I think it's more to do with corporate structures. We've talked about Wondery and Audible and Amazon Music and the stupidity of Amazon not thinking in joined up thinking. This is another example of it with the affiliates. I mean, I used to build Amazon skills, and you could write a skill called Capital Radio in New Zealand, and it would confuse it with the Capital Radio skill in the UK because there was no unique skill directory. Yeah. It was just they never think together. That's the problem with Amazon. I'm sorry to say. Anyway,
indeed.
There goes my party invite.
Anyway, there we are. Let's quickly have a rush round, because not that I've got yes, well, yes, and also Sam. At this point in the podcast, I should also say I also need to get dressed.
All right. No. Oh, thank God we use Clean Feed.
So there we are. There's numbers out of the UK for BBC Sounds. Podcast plays on the platform grew by 15%, which is interesting, but they haven't now broken out any play numbers for the actual podcasts. So for all of the podcasts globally anymore, which is interesting. There's some data, which again I think goes to show that YouTube data is that YouTube delivers very different viewing experiences and listening experiences than other things. New data showing that YouTube is used by more people in the UK than BBC television, which is a big, big deal, except only if you use the 3-minute monthly reach figure. So that's people who've used each platform for at least 3 minutes a month. If you do that, YouTube is number one, easily.
Is everyone listening to Pod News Daily?
If you use that, YouTube is number one, easily. If you don't, and you use the 15-minute monthly reach figure, so people who've used each platform for at least 15 minutes a month, if you look at it from a 15-minute point of view, then BBC television is 6 million users ahead. So all of this stuff about YouTube being number one for podcasts and blah, 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 again, if you just look at people in a 1-minute monthly reach, then yes, that might be correct. But if you look at total consumption, it probably isn't correct. So we should probably remind ourselves of that. And off to Canada, 40% of podcast consumers are using YouTube most often for podcasts, according to new data from Signal Hill Insights, which has demolished my argument, hasn't it? 24% say that they only consume video podcasts in the country, though. More details that you can get from the Signal Hill Insights website.
People News on the Pod News Weekly Review.
Lots of people and jobs news. Chloe Straw, as we just mentioned, joining as Director of Operations at Goalhanger. They've also made a number of other big hires in terms of an editorial director and a chief financial officer. So Goalhanger getting quite serious now in terms of things. Many congratulations to Hernan Lopez, who is an excellent man. And you may remember he's had the threat of prison time hung over him for the last 6 years.
Wow.
Talking about there was some legal conversation around alleged bribery to do with the World Cup and something to do with that. Anyway, that has been finally dropped by the Department of Justice in the US, which must be a big relief to everybody. He's always denied the charges. That's great news for him. A few other things. There's Dan Bongino, brilliant. He's left the FBI and gone back to podcasting. Excellent. How exciting is that going to be? There's a new CEO of Lemonade Media. Jessica Cordova-Kramer is stepping down. Stephanie Wittelswacht. I don't really understand how to pronounce the surname, which is why I didn't in the Pod News Daily. Please, if somebody knows how to pronounce that, tell me. I would really appreciate that. But a little bit of change at the top of there as well, and plenty of other changes too in terms of that. In terms of jobs, lots of jobs going, including jobs at Libsyn to replace Rob Walsh, who has left, to replace a number of other people who have also left that organisation. There's more news around Libsyn to come. I'm sure you'll find that at podnews.net/jobs, alongside an opportunity for you to join Amazon Music in Germany, for you to be Director of Spotify Advertising International Business Marketing. Gosh, that sounds exciting. But Amazon also saying that they plan to cut a further 370 jobs at its European HQ in Luxembourg, which is a big deal for Luxembourg because not many people there. So there's a thing. And also Bloomberg is hiring for a head of podcasts, which is an interesting thing too.
Podcast events on the Pod News Weekly Review.
In terms of awards and events, there's the Podcast Creator Summit in London, which is happening in early February. If you want to go, you should really be signing up. It's free. It's run by PRX from the US, AudioUK from the UK. It'll be held at Apple's London studios at Battersea Power Station. It's a really interesting looking thing. I wish I was there for it. You can sign up for free if there are still spaces in there. We've got a few awards coming up. South by Southwest, iHeart Podcast Awards. The ARIA is also open for entry. I should point out the Golden Globes, of course, won by Amy Poehler, which was what I said on this very podcast probably 2 months ago. I said Amy Poehler, the winner, and then the other people. So there we are. But that was a piece of showbiz gloss for podcasting that hopefully we can all benefit from. Megyn Kelly isn't happy,
no.
And she's said lots of grumpy things.
Did Megyn Kelly not make the list? Oh, why?
Well, yes. Megyn Kelly claims that she made the list, but she didn't.
No, she didn't.
Which was quite entertaining. Yes, so she said yes that she withdrew from the event. Well, weird that you would say that only after you weren't actually nominated, love. So there's a thing. But lots of stuff going on there, and of course we shouldn't forget some of the big events. Podfest going on right now here in Orlando, in Florida, which is where I am. But also Podcast Movement announcing more exciting things for South by Southwest in Austin, Texas. More details today in the Pod News newsletter. And On Air Fest and the Podcast Business Summit happening in February in Brooklyn, which again is an excellent thing.
And you're at Radio Days as well, James.
Yes, and I'm at Radio Days in Europe, in Riga, in Latvia, in mid-March. Looking forward to doing that. I'm talking about radio, though. I'm not talking about podcasting. Weird, I know, but still, there we are. That's the only thing that they allow me to talk about there. Yes, so that should be fun. Now, normally in the show we do the tech stuff. This week we can't do the tech stuff, because we've actually run out of time for it. But we will have more tech stuff next week. So apologies for that. And there's plenty to go through already. But I would like to say thank you to our many supporters. You can support us at weekly.podnews.net. I ended up buying from that money, by the way, I ended up buying Dave Jackson dinner last night.
Nice.
So that was very excellent, as well as Daniel J. Lewis, Rob Walsh and Rob Greenlee. So that was a fun thing. It wasn't very expensive. but still.
Burger King again, eh?
Pretty well. We all had burgers, I can tell you that much. Apart from Rob, just in case his wife is listening, Rob Walsh had a salad. It's important for you to know. Anyway, weekly.podnews.net is where to go. Thank you so much for your support. We've had a number of mentions on fan mail and things like that. Dave Jackson sending me a number of things. You guys don't rant much, but when you do, it's so good. So Dave Jackson, thank you so much for that. Thank you to Cameron Moll, who's been supporting us for a long time. Much appreciated, Cameron. And welcome Seth Goldstein, for becoming a new Power supporter. Please tell us which way it is, Seth. That would be very kind. Weekly.podnews.net is where to go for that. What have you been doing this week, Sam? Anything exciting?
No, nothing. Really boring. Just getting stuff fixed and working and getting ready to launch. So yeah, boring week.
Well, yes, I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to learning more about your funding announcements.
Indeed,
as well.
when you come together.
Yes, that would be good. I had a very entertaining trip over here in that I get to the airport nice and early. I'm then sitting in the airport, just about to get my second coffee, and all of a sudden the fire alarm goes off, and everybody in the airport has to evacuate, which was good. Imagine everybody from an airport evacuating, and then having to wait outside for half an hour, and then having to all go through security all over again.
Oh no!
Yeah, that was less than fun.
Lucky it was Australia, not America.
That was an entertaining start, and then finally I get here to the hotel. I'm sitting and doing some work, writing a pod news, doing all of that, and then the fire alarm goes off, and we all have to evacuate out of the hotel. And I'm there thinking, is it me? Is it me? Perhaps it's me because I'm smoking. I don't know, but yes, that was very strange. And as we record, it's early on Thursday morning. Podfest has yet to properly kick off, but there was some good pre meetings last night, and it's just really good to catch up with a lot of people. I tell you, the person whose presence is being missed is, of course, Todd Cochran. He will be having a memorial for him at the Podcast Hall of Fame on a Friday evening, but certainly he has been mentioned more than once in glowing terms. So his presence certainly felt. So yeah, it's a bit of a weird one, having a big conference without the overbearing presence of Mr. Cochran here. But I'm sure that we will get through the whole thing. In this show next week, hopefully some audio from the event as well.
I'm sure he's watching down from his cloud going, get your own cloud. Yes.
I'm sure he is. I'm sure he's watching down and going, at least I don't have to put up the booth this time.
So some rewards. Nah.
Yes, indeed. So Mackenzie, their new director of marketing. I always like a director of marketing. They have budget. So Mackenzie will be sticking that up. So best of luck to her. And that's it for this week. You can support us using streaming sats. You can support us at weekly.podnews.net. Many thanks if you do that. And yes, and thank you for doing that. What is it that you normally say? Because we've deleted the we've deleted the FQ.
Well, you can continue to support the show by streaming sats. You can send us super comments or boosts, or better still, you can become a weekly Power supporter at weekly.podnews.net. Hey, look at that! Without the notes, I can do it.
That was very good. You remembered it entirely. What I should have said is something like, there's more details in the Pod News daily newsletter, which you can get for free at podnews.net. Our music is from TM Studios. Our voiceover is Sheila D. And whatever that voice was that you heard at the beginning, which I think is from 11 Labs now, because our Wondercraft account has finly expired.
Oh, right.
So, yes.
Better interview them
and
again.
I can't. Yes, exactly. So there's a thing. We're hosted and sponsored by our sponsor, Buzzsprout. Start podcasting, keep podcasting.
Get updated every day. Subscribe to our newsletter at podnews.net. Tell your friends and grow the show.
And support us.
The Pod News Weekly Review will return next week. Keep listening.